All right, I'll try to win back a bit of time from the previous speaker, so you'll make it to your next session in time. So my name is Barry Wildhagen. I'm a senior product specialist within Informatica's pre-sales organization, and I focus solely on MDM. What we'll talk about today, first off, I'll start by putting a little bit of context into this story. You've heard, in the opening session this morning, people talk about digital transformation, disruption, and stuff like that. Then we'll look into, okay, what is the role of master data in all this digital transformation and disruption, and in data-driven organizations. Then we'll look at how you actually manage that master data. And how do you then create value out of this master data and to support new business models and new engagement models? So that's what we'll do in today's discussion. Hopefully we'll have a bit of time left for you to ask questions as well. So this morning's session was all about the influence of data in data transformation, data disruption, creating new business models. Did everyone see the session this morning? Was everyone present? Okay, good. So I won't go too deep into this. This should be familiar. But when we look at these new business models, they are basically supported by three things. One is, we see new customer engagement models within businesses. We also see new products and new services arise based on this digital transformation, and we also see new operating models come across within organizations. The main thing out of all these initiatives that they all have in common is data. Data is critical to the digital transformation and disruption within organizations. So how do we get here? A little bit of history. In the beginning of the computing age, say the 60s up until the 90s, when you talked about data was really synonymous to an application or a business application. If you spoke about an application, you would also mean the data that was in that application. And that's what we call data 1.0. Now, as time progressed, we saw that this data could actually have some value. And this is where we see data become not just part of a single application where it's really monolithic, but this data is actually supporting a business process. So it flows through maybe a few business applications, or you'll see it end up in a data warehouse. And this is what we call data 2.0. But today, what we see happening today and going forward is that this data really powers the digital transformation. The data is free. It's not linked anymore to specific application, to specific business process. As Greg put it this morning, it's democratized, right? So data is free to roam wherever it is needed. And that's what we call data 3.0. Now, there are a few things that we see happening with this data 3.0. First thing is we see an explosion of data. You saw Greg put up a big number this morning on the screen. I'm surprised he got it to fit into that slide. Another thing we see is new users that are data literate, data savvy. If you look at people coming off universities right now, even if they haven't studied computer science, they are data savvy. They understand the value of data and what data can bring to them. They are data literate. The other thing we see is that it's not just the customer records or transactions. We also see, with the influence of mobile, social, Internet of Things, we see new data types arise in businesses. And data isn't just tied to an on-premise database or data structure or data set. It's going out into the cloud. So really different types of where data is stored. And machine learning and AI, puts this in another perspective where data is now, not only consumed by people, consumed and produced, but it's also consumed and produced by machines and algorithms that do something with this data and produce even more data, right? So that's what we see happening. Organizations that are in a digital transformation, they are either in one of or in multiple of these so-called journeys to make this happen. The first one is cloud, hybrid data management. The second one is data governance and compliance. The third is next generation analytics, so big data and things like that. And the fourth is a 360 engagement. And by this we mean a complete view of your customers, your products, your assets, and things like that. So what is the role of master data in all this thing, in everything that is going on in this data 3.0? When you look at any organization, and I hope this is the same for you, you have business goals, right? Why are we here? You have stakeholder expectations. These could be your stockholders, your customers, your employees, regulators who are also stakeholders in this. You probably have a goal to increase your revenue. You want to grow as a business. And at the same time, you want to do this in a way which is profitable in the long run. Because otherwise, I don't think you'll be around very long, unless you're a non-profit, but that's a different discussion. So out of these business goals, organizations, they have a number of strategies and initiatives that they embark on to reach these goals. It could be improving your total customer experience. It could be bringing new services and products to market and developing these. It could be decreasing the cost of sales and things like that. But what we see happening is that with these initiatives, there are some challenges and some pains that organizations run into. For instance, it could be too expensive to identify and actually attract all these new customers. You may not have a complete, 360-degree view of your customers, your products, your assets, your locations, your employees, your suppliers, all of these things. And you spend an excessive amount of time trying to take all this or get all this data together, gather it, then manipulate it in a way that it is usable for you as a business. We at Informatica, when we talk to our customers, we generally find that these pains and challenges are caused by three main themes. The first one is that data is siloed. It's siloed in applications, in data sets, your ERP system, your CRM system. This is still very much the data 1.0, data 2.0 era. The second point is that even if you do have access to this data, the data often is incomplete. It contains duplicates. It's dirty. You can't really use it. You can't derive value from it because the quality is so bad. And the third point is that some organizations have recognized this and they've started an initiative to improve on this. But because most organizations are not IT companies, they actually do something different. This initiative has grown out of control, where it's so heavily customized that it's just unmanageable anymore. So when you look at some statistics, according to Gartner, on average, bad data quality within organizations cost about $15 million a year. And if you take another piece of research, this was done by the Harvard Business Review, the fact of bad data quality costs US organizations roughly around $3 trillion a year. That's a huge amount. You can do a lot of nice things for that. And out of those organizations that were interviewed, they found out that 54% of those organizations didn't really have a single customer view across all the channels, across all their touch points with their customers. So let's take a very practical example of how this actually works, kind of to put this into context. So if this is an oversimplified overview of your IT infrastructure, this is me as a customer within those systems. Now, traditionally, what you would do if you want to exchange or integrate some data, you would build an interface and another interface and many more interfaces. And each of these interfaces, they use a different technology. There is a different latency. There are different things going on there. And ultimately, you end up with this spaghetti. And I didn't know that the speaker this morning was going to talk about spaghetti and lasagna, but this was already in my slides. So it is a common theme. Now, the problem with this is that it really impedes you from having this single view of your customer, of your product, but also the relationships that this customer has, or any interactions. And this wreaks havoc in your IT organization. If you pull one string, you have no idea where it's going to move, how it's going to impact other systems, the data itself. It's really a mess. So why is this so difficult, you might ask, from a functional perspective? If you go back maybe 20, 30 years, interacting with your customer was relatively easy. They could either come to you, to a branch, or they would phone you up, or you would phone them up, right? Easy as that. But nowadays we have customer call centers, we have web, we have mobile apps, we have still physical branches, although some companies are trying to get rid of those. But we have marketing, we've got events, we've got sponsorships, customers that use networks to interact with you as an organization. There are a lot of channels, a lot of customer touch points. Furthermore, the data is alive. It moves, it changes, it impacts, it degrades. This is what happens just in a single hour in the US on average, right? So if you think of, well, we've got the data quality in order now, let's go out and do business. No, because in a day, in a week, in a month, that data will have changed. It is a continuous effort to keep this data up to date. And when you think of it from a master data perspective, it's not just about getting this single view of your customer. You're probably also interested in all the relationships that it has with products, with customers and customers to form households, or maybe this customer is a contact for one of my B2B customers, as well as all the transactions and interactions that are related to this customer. So master data and master data management is vital to all of these journeys. We see this come up in all of these journeys. So how then do you master your master data? And how do data-driven organizations do this? It is not enough just to know and identify your customer. You also want to know the relationships with, for instance, what do they have? What have they purchased? What are the subscriptions that they have with my company? Some of the products that they've purchased, and what is their status? Are they a customer? Are they a prospect? Are they getting married? Are they deceased? This is very important to know, because the other thing you want to know is what opportunities do we then have to go out and sell and offer more products and solutions to these customers. It's unlikely that someone who's deceased will take up a life insurance, but still there are customers or organizations that do this because they don't have this in order. Very painful. So back to our example. So ideally what you would want is something in the middle, and for argument's sake, let's just call it an MDM solution, a master data management solution. And this MDM solution does a number of things. It, first off, ingests all this information, so all the records from all your source systems. It then cleanses this data, it matches it, it merges it into a single consolidated view of that customer. And this is what we call the golden record, or the single version of X, or there are a number of synonyms that are used for this out in the market. And the idea is that this single version you actually publish or expose to those other systems. And they can be operational systems, they can be analytical systems. And then you may ask, okay, that's great, but I've got an ERP system, I've got a CRM system that already gives me this single view of my product and my customer, etc., etc. Why do I need something like an MDM solution for this? It's a very good point. The answer to this is that yes, your ERP system and your CRM system will contain master data, but they are not there to manage this data. These applications are there to support a business process. That's what they're good at. But what they lack are capabilities to actually manage and master this data. In other words, they don't support a data management initiative. They don't have cleansing or standardization features. They don't do matching. They don't do merging. They don't do relating this information to each other. Not just within the application. You need to have this across all of your data domains. And this is why an MDM solution is fit for this. Actually, a data platform is fit for this, and why you can't manage this within a single application. So what this solution actually does is it creates this 360-degree view based on all your data sources, and I do mean all your data sources where customer data or product data or any of this master data resides. You bring it in, you do a discovery phase first. This is what Greg also mentioned this morning. This is really, really important. So you discover this first by profiling the data, cataloging it, understanding what it is, where it is, and how it is used. Based on that, you create a data model that holds this master data, and then you go off and you cleanse it and you enrich this data using data quality to improve the quality of the data. Once you've improved this data, the quality of this data, you are then ready to match it and to merge it and create this single view of that customer record. And if you have this single customer record, you can then relate this customer to maybe another customer to form a household, or maybe to a product to establish a customer-product relation. The product, you relate this to a location. Location, you can relate that to an employee, etc., etc. So this is what you would then do. And once you have all that information within the MDM hub, you then expose it to either operational systems or to analytical systems for data analysis. So how then do we create value out of this? And what do some of our customers do with this MDM solution? We know based on research that data-driven organizations, if they do this right, they will get a between 3 to 7% higher revenue. And MDM is absolutely critical in making this happen. So let's talk about a few cases that we've come across. So Coca-Cola is a great example. Coca-Cola has the goal of putting a Coke in your hand when you desire it within 10 seconds, wherever you are around the globe. Now imagine the sheer impact this has on their supply chain and how they have to organize this and how they have to understand where their customers are and what their desires are. So Coca-Cola, they've used an MDM solution to master both the product and the customer data to make this happen. GE is another example. Now I understand that GE is a large company, but we're specifically talking about GE, the aircraft engine manufacturer here. So traditionally, if an airline or a lease company would buy an aircraft, they would buy an engine along with it. And that was just a single cell, etc. And if the engine was broke or had to be serviced, the airplane would go to a maintenance depot and crew and would get maintenance, etc. The airplane would be out of service for a certain period of time. What GE has done is, instead of selling engines, they are now leasing the engines on an airplane. So even though the airplane itself may belong to KLM, SAS, Turkish Airlines, the engine is still owned by GE, and they will guarantee that they will service it whenever maintenance is required. Whenever the airplane goes for maintenance, they will swap out the engine and get a new one on you while they do maintenance on that engine, and the aircraft can continue flying. So the engine you get on your airplane may not necessarily be the one that was on it when you first got it. But this has enabled GE to really transform and change the business model. And they use Informatica to help them with making this clear, understanding when an engine needs maintenance, what engine it is, and what are the parts with it. Liberty Global. Liberty Global is the owner. It's a US-based company, but they're quite large in Europe as well. They own brands like Vodafone, Ziggo. It's a media company. They do communications, TV, internet, that sort of thing. What they wanted to understand, and the communications business and media and entertainment is going through a lot of changes, where people don't really watch TV anymore. They will watch Netflix, or they will binge watch something else. And this requires Liberty Global to change their business model as well. But for that, they need to understand their customers, what they look at, but also how do we get the right products to our customers and the right services. So if they've looked at an MDM solution to bring about and create this consolidated view of all their products and services and items, and where in the supply chain they need to bring about these items and products. And the last one, Walt Disney. Everyone knows Walt Disney. What Walt Disney has done in terms of customer experience is something quite unique. Whenever you visit one of their parks and you wear one of these bracelets, you are then identified wherever you go, in a restaurant, at attraction. I don't know if anyone has already done this at Walt Disney, but what is powering this is MDM, data integration, data quality, and it allows Disney to identify you as a customer. So whenever you walk into a restaurant, the employee will call you by your first name. Now, I don't know about you, but when I get into a restaurant, and without even mentioning my name and someone already calls me by my first name, that has a great impact on customer experience and customer service. And they use data and an MDM solution and data integration and data quality to make this happen. Gather all this data from the different sources, bring it together, create this single profile, and then use that in their operational business side. So, final takeaways. I told you I was going to bring back some time. One thing that should be very, very clear. An MDM program is a business program. If it resides within IT, it will fail. I kind of guarantee it. 95% will fail. If the business is not engaged, then all efforts are almost futile. You need to treat your data like an asset, and that may sound something like a very open door, like yes, that's very logical, but what it really means is that you need to assign owners to that data. Someone needs to be responsible for that data. You need to assign resources to it, policies, and also processes to manage it and to curate it. An MDM technology, such as Informatica's technology, is only part of the puzzle. The other ones are people and processes, and you've heard the speakers mention that this morning. The other thing is you need to have a very strong data governance process, because an MDM solution by itself is not sufficient to do all this. An MDM initiative incorporates data integration, data quality, and a governance process to define what the data is, get lineage, get business glossaries, etc., etc. And also, when you do this initiative, you need to make sure that you measure the quality of the data over time. And this actually brings me to my next point, because an MDM initiative really is a journey. It's not a project. It's not something that you start today and it finishes, 6 months from now. It is really continuous, also because it continually changes. It may impact the focus of your journey, and it really doesn't have an end. And last but not least, those organizations that do embark on an MDM initiative, and the ones that are successful at it, they've started really, really small, with a small set of attributes for defined region or defined data domain. And this is how they built trust with the business. They provided value really, really quick. And because they provided this trust and value, they actually got enough confidence to then scale out, either increase the footprint of the customer data domain, or maybe go into mastering other data domains such as product or asset, employees, reference data, chart of accounts. Those are just some use cases for this. The point is, big bang implementations with MDM, they don't work, because you can't really boil the ocean, because your environment constantly changes, your data changes. By the time you've figured out how to do this in one way, the world has already changed and you just can't keep up. So start small, build trust, and then scale.
Thank you, Barry.
All right. Do we have some time for questions?
Unfortunately not.
Oh, okay. Well, we're out there at the booth anyway, and if you do like this, you can see more of it at our own customer event.